Thank you so much. On October 10th, my father, Pastor Ezra Jinu, was arrested by the Chinese authority along with 27 other church pastors and leaders of Zion Church. 17 church leaders now remain in prison with him, and all 18 have been formally arrested this week. This crackdown has been reported as the largest takedown of an independent church in China since the Cultural Revolution. Because of the prominence of the church and the brazenness of the Chinese repression, this case has become an international incident and has been profiled extensively on international press, attracting a number of statements by public support across the U.S. government and beyond. Thank you so much, including from Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Many of these church leaders were taken in front of their young families, who now they leave behind. My father and several other older leaders struggle with various health issues, and we are deeply concerned about their treatment in prison. I urge the Chinese government to release all these Zion Church members immediately and unconditionally. My father's church, Zion Church, was founded in 2007 with the mission to be faithful to God's word and to serve the families and communities around us. By God's grace and power, within just 1 decade, Zion grew rapidly into the largest emerging urban house church in China, with more than 1,500 members at the time. Since Chairman Xi Jinping came into power, he had refocused the Chinese Communist Party and the state to strengthen ideological purity and consolidate control of society. In 2016, Xi rewrote the regulation on religion in China and emphasized the need to sinocize religion. However, at its core, this is not about making the religion more Chinese. Christians in China already have Chinese Bibles, indigenous hymns, their own church history, and unique theology grown from years of persecution. Our churches are not led by foreign missionaries, but by Chinese Christians themselves. Instead, the campaign is truly about forcing socialist core values into the religion. It's less Sinofization, it is more partification of religion. Beginning in 2018, a wave of persecution and crackdown on all religion began under the auspices of this Sinicization. In 2018, Zion Church was also targeted because the church leadership refused to install facial recognition cameras inside the sanctuary. The government harassed hundreds of church members, threatened them with their jobs, rented houses, children's education, and even their parents' retirement accounts. Many of the congregants did, in fact, pay these consequences to keep their faith. On September 9th, hundreds of police brutally seized and shuttered the church buildings, took hold of church assets, and briefly detained and closely surveyed the pastors and leaders. And since 2018, my father has been put under an exit ban and consequently has been forcibly separated from my family in the U.S. for more than 7 years. However, as powerful as the Chinese Communist Party is, it will never be able to take our faith and belief from us. In Zion's own church history, we've already seen how the government's attempt to coerce the faith and control the faithful have backfired, laying bare the hollowness of authoritarian ideology and the strength of faith, and ultimately growing the church. Because the church lost its place of worship, it pushed my father's church to develop a hybrid online-offline model that went nationwide, launching 100 new church plants across 40 cities across China, growing the church to the largest it has ever been, reaching 10,000 people daily. In 2015, a new wave of religious persecution is brewing across China. Earlier this year, multiple Zion Church sites in dozens of cities were frequently disrupted during our Sunday services, with over 150 pastors and elders and church members were taken to the police station. They were harassed, threatened, interrogated, and some briefly detained. In May of this year, Pastor Gao Quanfu, a dear friend of my father's based in Xi'an, was detained on criminal charges of using superstitious activities to undermine the implementation of law and fraud. His son is also here with us in the audience today, seeking to speak out about his parents and their church. In June, multiple co-workers of Golden Lampstand Church in Linfen were imprisoned for fraud, including Pastor Yang Rongli, who is receiving 15 years sentence. Many more churches in China are suffering ongoing persecution this year. Chinese independent house churches are seen as a threat not because they are evil or dangerous, as authorities so often try to paint them. They are a threat because they often care deeply for the society and serve the community out of love and not control. The church also brings a uniquely connected civil society organization in China, bringing people from different economic, education, and social strata. Churches often model transparency in leadership, including democratically selecting church elders, rotation of church board members, and clear and independent financial structures. Christians in China do not oppose authorities, and the church has always sought to enrich Chinese society. They merely ask to be free from the control of the Chinese Communist Party, a self-identified atheist organization, and the sacred decisions of the church, including things like who can attend and be baptized, what kind of sermons can be preached, what songs of worship they can sing. My father started Zion in order to worship freely in a church that put God as the sole head of our church, like many faithful Christians everywhere. My father's church seeks to give unto Caesar's what is Caesar's, but hold on to the position that thou shalt have no other gods before me. Since I began advocating for my father and the release of other church leaders detained around a month ago, my family has also experienced transnational repression. A week after we began speaking out on my father's detention, my mother received a threatening phone call from someone impersonating a U.S. federal agent. I have also been watched and followed in Washington, D.C. as I met with friends and mentors who have been helping me. I'm sometimes indeed fearful. After all, I know that I seek to expose and hold account the second most powerful country in the world. Yet as a Christian, I believe that we are asked to take courage and speak truth, and that God who created heaven and earth will stand by our side. Similarly, I urge the leaders here today to take similar courage, to speak, to use the authority entrusted into your hands, and to not forget us. Speak our names, Pastor Ezra Jinu, Pastor Gao Yinjia, Pastor Wang Lin, Pastor Yin Huibin, and all the leaders of Zion Church in China, and others as well. Pastor Gao Quanfu of Light of Zion Church in Xi'an, Pastor Wang Yi of Early Rain Covenant Church, Elder Zhang Chunlei of Guiyang Ren'ai Reformed Church, and many others. Do not signal defeat and acceptance of this trampling of human rights with your silence. We are praying for the full release of all Zion imprisoned church leaders today, and despite not knowing why this is happening, and experiencing despair of seeing my father and others wrongfully imprisoned, I can draw strength in knowing that my God is a good God, and even in these bleakest moments, might be used for bigger things, and our work is not in vain. My father wrote in a letter from prison just a week ago that God has indeed used his power to uphold us. I believe that God is also testing us during this time like refining silver, painful, but full of love. But God will not abandon us. Thank you so much.
I agree with Ambassador Brownback, and just a quick anecdote. When they came to imprison my father or detain my father, there were 30 police people that came into my father's house to imprison a 56-year-old pastor who can't karate chop his way out of anything. And so there was no need there could be one police person that could have come. Instead, they had 30 people surround the entire house in order to detain him. And that just shows how much that they fear this type of this faith. And I think part of it is, again, because of the resilience of the faithful, that they can't take away something that is so intimate and so core to oneself. And in terms of signaling, they also want to show the world that there's no one there to help you, that your God is not there, your church is not there, there's no one there, and therefore you are always under my and solely my control. And I think that is wrong. And I think this is a universal human rights issue, and that we need to stand together with those that are persecuted for faith.
Thank you so much. I will
quickly just talk about Zion's own church network. We are still able to meet on Zoom. There are several pastors who just so happen to be abroad. Several of them were studying in the US, or they were at a meeting and conference in South Korea when this takedown happened. So they are still able to host our hybrid Zoom meetings and or sermons and worship. And unfortunately, it does still take a lot of, there are a lot of consequences. So there requires a lot of bravery for those who still come to services, either in person or online. And again, many people have suffered already consequences. But I think that, like even during the Cultural Revolution, people held on to their faith, even if it meant hiding in someone's in the kitchen and quietly singing to their families and their kids. And I don't think even during that time they were not able to wipe out Christianity. I don't think that they will be able to wipe out Christianity today. But I do think that it is a lot of people in China, the Christians in China, are suffering and are dealing with the consequences of being faithful to their faith.
Thank you.
'Cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that